Why why is it that Protestants don't have those? Why is my ESV Bible not have those books in there? It has 39 books. I know you correct me if I'm wrong, the Jewish scriptures, it was actually 24 books. And those it's the same books that we have in ours, but they put, First and Second Kings together, and they put First and Second Chronicles together. And so the Tanakh, it's the same as what we use. And so why is it that there's this apocrypha, and why is it included in the Catholic Bible but not in ours?
Yeah, so there's a few things to address there. Specifically, what these books are is you have a period between what we call our Old and New Testament, and that's a period of about 400 years. So if you think of the gutter between Malachi and Matthew is about 400 years. And so in between that, you have the Jews, the nation of Israel, writing histories and other books. They're chronicling things. They're writing philosophical texts and that kind of stuff. And so you're exactly right. The Jewish canon, what's referred to as the Tanakh, the Torah, the Law, the Nevi'im, which are the prophetic writings, and the Ketuvim, which are like Psalms and Proverbs, the poetic sort of writings. We have the exact same number. So you'll see this number thrown around in like ancient writings like Philo or Josephus, some of those early Jews who may or may not recognize their names, and they throw either the number 22 or 23 out. Now, that's not a different number than we have in our Old Testaments, like you said, Tim. Exact same books, different order. They order the prophets in different ways, and they order, like you said, Chronicles and Kings. We have First and Second Chronicles, First and Second Kings, and that's what we have. They just have Chronicles or Kings. And in fact, any Hebrew publication is translated by the same document that any Christian publication is. It's called the Hebraica Biblia Stratagensia. And so we're dealing with the same texts. But it's a key thing to understand that the Jews throughout history never thought that those other documents were scripture unanimously. What starts to happen, where the whole story starts, the ball starts to get rolling, is about 200 years before Jesus. You have the language of the ancient world being Greek. And so what happens is the Old Testament, what we know as the Old Testament, is translated into Greek in what's known as the Septuagint. And the Septuagint is the Greek translation of the Old Testament. But they also, along with that, translated some of these other books. And so you get collections of these Jewish writings, and they include the Old Testament, the Tanakh, and these other writings. Now, an interesting thing with some of these other writings, in fact, I think it's all of the other writings, is that they only exist in Greek. There are no Hebrew copies of, say, Maccabees or Tobit, or those documents have their origin in Greek. And so when you get to the Christians, the further you move Christianity away from a Jewish movement and into a Gentile movement, then you have early Christians reading the Old Testament in Greek, the Septuagint, and the New Testament in Greek, because that's what it was written in. And then there are these other books floating around. And the real questions start to happen, I think, when you see the Jewishness of Christianity move into a Gentileness, and they start to question some of those things. Now, we'll talk about sort of the dust settling on the canon in general. But I think unanimously what we can say is that by the time of Jesus, they knew what the books of Scripture were. So Josephus has this line, the books that were laid up in the temple. And I think we can prove pretty concisely that those were that 22 or 23 number, what we have in our Old Testament. And we can also look at things like the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls included all of what we would consider our Old Testament, apart from Ruth. And I don't think that necessarily proves anything, that they didn't think Ruth was scripture or something. But they at least appeared to include all of these other books as scripture as well. So I think we can say definitively that the Jews in Jesus's day had the same canon of scripture that we have as our Old Testament.
Okay.
But Christians later on start to question, okay, what do we do with these other books? And that's when the conversations start to happen.